Look around your life. There's a guitar you haven't touched in months, a half-built website, a shelf of books on topics that have nothing to do with each other. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice whispering, "What is wrong with you?" Society gave that voice a name. Dilettante, scattered, unfocused, someone who can't commit. You've probably heard the phrase, "Jack of all trades, master of none," and use it like a weapon against yourself. But here's what nobody tells you. That's only half the quote. The full version reads, "A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one." The second half got buried because it was inconvenient for a world that wanted obedient specialists. But psychology is catching up to what your nervous system already knew. You aren't broken. You're building something rare. For the last century, success looked like an I shape. Dig one hole, go deep, master one craft, and in a stable world. What researchers call a kind learning environment. That worked. Like golf, the rules don't change. 10,000 hours of practice, and you win. But you don't live in that world. The modern world is what psychologists call a wicked environment. The rules change before you finish learning them. Industries that existed when you were born are being automated out of existence right now. In a wicked environment, the specialist isn't elite. They're fragile. One shift in the market, and a decade of expertise becomes a liability. Your brain knows this. That's why it keeps dragging you. Here's what you're actually doing when you drift between interests. Psychology has a term for it: far transfer. Specialists use near transfer. They solve familiar problems with familiar tools. But you take a framework from one domain and apply it somewhere it's never been applied before. That's not dabbling. That's where innovation actually comes from. Think about a web developer who spent years beekeeping and farming before they ever touched code. On paper, completely unrelated. But that background gave them an intuitive understanding of organic systems, feedback loops, and growth cycles that no boot camp can teach. They don't just write code, they think in ecosystems. That is far transfer. That is the edge that can't be replicated by someone who only ever stared at one screen. Your value was never in your depth alone. It's in your synthesis, the connections you see between worlds that specialists can't even perceive because they never left their lane. So why does it still feel like you're losing? Because you're misreading the geometry of your own potential. You're not T-shaped, general knowledge with one deep spike. You're M-shaped, multiple pillars of genuine depth, connected by a bridge of relentless curiosity. The problem is you've been trying to build all those pillars simultaneously, and that's not how the M gets built. The people who master this life, the true polymaths, don't pursue everything at once. They practice what's called serial mastery. They think in seasons. One decade, you go deep into music and creative work. The next, you pivot to programming because the bills are real and the skill is valuable. You didn't abandon music. You just completed that season of construction and broke ground on the next pillar. Then one day, and this is the part that sounds impossible until it happens, the pillars start talking to each other. Now here's the trait that makes you genuinely bulletproof, and it comes from evolutionary biology. It's called redundancy. And in nature, redundancy isn't waste, it's survival architecture. Elephants almost never get cancer, not because they're lucky, but because they carry multiple copies of the same cancer-fighting gene. If one fails, another activates. The system doesn't collapse because no single point is irreplaceable. Your so-called scattered interests are your redundancy. If you're only a software engineer and AI eats your job, you're exposed. But if you're a software engineer who also knows electrical systems, can teach, understands design, and has spent real time in 3 other disciplines, you are unbreakable. Not because any one of those skills is world-class, but because the combination of them creates a person the economy simply cannot make obsolete. You weren't wasting time. You were building a safety net so layered and personal that no algorithm can replicate it. Those abandoned hobbies aren't a graveyard. They're a curriculum, one you designed yourself for a degree no institution offers. You were never meant to be just one thing. You were built to be the bridge between worlds that specialists can't even see from where they're standing. Stop apologizing for the whole person you're becoming. If this reframed how you see yourself, drop a comment below and subscribe for the deep dive research on how to structure your seasons intentionally.